The long-awaited Armies of Middle Earth book is finally here, with a huge expansion of profiles and perhaps more importantly, army lists available to the game. Join us as we go through what the new book has added, how it all works, and what it means for your armies. Hello and welcome to Striding Edge Games. I'm Boris.
And I'm Julian.
And it's finally here. Armies of Middle Earth, the third book, long-awaited. A long-awaited book? Or a long-expected book?
A long-expected book.
Or an unexpected book. It's not unexpected. That's the Legacies, which we'll get onto later.
Yep.
It's finally here, the third book. It has been 6 months. I think it was
from release of the new edition, yeah.
With our three first books, Middle Earth, the Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and the Rulebook was mid-December, and at the time of recording it is mid-June. So it's been a long old wait, but I think, hopefully, we can say it's been worth it. And
I think so.
Yeah, it's really good. We've had a quick run through. What we're going to do in this video is go through much in the same way as we ran through the two army books and the list construction. We're going to have a quick run through of the Armies of Middle Earth. We're not going to go through every single profile kind of exhaustively because
there's a lot.
There's a lot. Other people have probably done the same.
And they're also, because of the construction of the book, they're slightly weird out of context.
Yeah, they're strange out of context. Most of them gain an army bonus.
Yeah.
As well as their profiles. And because it's sort of a bit from all over the place, they would be, kind of out of context, as you say, Jules. So we're not going to do that, but we're going to go through and have a look at some of the maybe more interesting ones and the list construction and what this means for playing the game in friendlies, match plays, tournaments, whatever you want to do. It's quite a lot to take in. So we'll dive into it. What has this book meant for the game, Jules?
Well, I think, it was relatively well sort of pre-announced by Games Workshop in the sense of that they were clear that there was going to be the two army books and then a third book, and it would take the sort of Middle Earth strategy battle game that we knew and loved from the previous edition and sort of cut it up and sew it back together in a slightly different manner.
Yeah, I would say if I could start with the negative, that's the one part I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
The slightly strange division between, we now have 3 army books effectively, plus the Legacies document, which we'll get onto.
Yeah, like if you're the sort that goes to an event and you want to take your army book and you're like, oh, it's the Hobbit. But
actually I'm using one profile from this
something
book.
From there is in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to pretend to know why. It could very well be a very good reason. It could be licensing. It could be a mandate from somewhere else. It is what it is, and frankly, in day-to-day, we generally use a sort of online army builder or even an Excel spreadsheet, and a lot of the time, you're fine. You don't need to
go
jump
from memory until we're wrong.
Yes, which is often. But yeah, so that's the first thing. Is it split it? We've got the third part. We've had 2/3 of the game, and we've now got the final third.
Yeah, which has had the effect of, when everything was released, everyone was kind of losing their minds online because, is Khazad-dûm dead, or various kind of things.
Why is X list missing Y hero?
Yeah, and this kind of fills in some of those gaps. It doesn't fill every gap. There are still, unfortunately, some units that have gone to Legacies, which would be familiar to anyone who's from 40k or a Heresy background.
Or I think they did it for Age of Sigmar as well. Basically, other Games Workshop games.
Yeah, they basically sort of said, like, we're not going to sell this model anymore. In the meantime, here are some rules that you can use. They're not going to be supported. But, yeah, some units have gone to that. It's mostly some of the slightly stranger things.
Just stuff that hasn't been on sale for a long time. Although not all. Some of it's relatively new.
All the Dunland stuff just got taken out.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't quite understand why.
Yeah, maybe it's similar enough to the Wild Men from the War of the Hero era that they would be duplicating, but...
Oh, actually, probably that's why.
Yeah.
Well, it might even be to do with licensing.
Maybe.
But anyway, yes, this is a random thing. So, what does this book do is basically it's added in a whole bunch of new profiles.
Yep. For most factions.
For most factions. A whole bunch of... not new lists, they're mostly replacing lists that were in the previous edition, or legendary legions that were in the previous edition.
Yep.
And then it's also added some of these profiles that they're back in can now be taken in army lists, which are in The Hobbit or I've forgotten the name of the other book, Armies of the Lord of the Rings.
That's the one. Yeah, I mean, it's it's some obvious stuff like, I mean, to go back to my Rohan fan favorite, which I think I said in the video from December where we went over the army list construction. Games Workshop still sold Diorwine and Elfhelm at the time. They are definitively in the books, both of them, Elfhelm particularly. But they weren't in those books at all. There were no profiles. They didn't exist in the game. This book, there are profiles for them, and then it tells you which. There are a couple of lists in this book where they can, or one list in this book they can go into, two actually, and then it tells you what list they can go into that book. Again, slightly awkward because if I look up Riders of Theoden in the Armies of Lord of the Rings, it gives me a list, definitive list and army bonuses of what the army is.
Which is nice.
Which is nice, but if I didn't own this book, I wouldn't know that I was actually missing out on a couple of other heroes. Again, the community's really generally pretty good at creating, not workarounds, but shortcuts to this sort of thing with online list builders.
And also most of it is logical in the sense that if you read this book, you'll be like, oh, these two Rohan heroes, they should probably be in several Rohan lists.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to argue the point too much.
Or more generic characters like the Orc Shaman is back, which is lovely, and a few different types of Shaman. And they can be plugged into, as it were, several different lists.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. Same for fiefdoms, didn't exist as a faction at all, and they're now back with a vengeance, which is nice to see. So yeah, it's almost like I think it's like a completion. We've kind of finally closed the loop, to use a horrible phrase, or gone full circle.
Well, it kind of feels like, I mean,
filled in the gaps.
Bearing in mind that in the previous release of the edition, it did actually take longer than most people probably remember for it to become fully featured, because Armies of the Lord of the Rings came out on release, but Armies of the Hobbit took a little while, and then it turns out that the match play guide was like 2 years after that or something.
It was not a given. I think it was the first one because it's a usual. They've introduced it, so it's in the old world now. I think beforehand there was a match play guide for Titanicus. I think that was maybe not before the Middle Earth one, but it was certainly quite a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, in the 40k they were doing the generals, and Age of Sigmar they were doing like generals handbook things.
But that was meant to be a yearly thing, whereas the match play guide is sort of
but yeah, so I mean, it basically fills it in. We're pretty much back to where we were in terms of almost every unit. Well, certainly every unit that you can buy off the Games Workshop website has a profile and a list that can go in, which 6 months ago was not the case.
Yes, yeah. So hopefully everyone can breathe a sigh of relief, pull your army out of the cupboard that you've been holding on to for 6 months.
Or buy one.
And then go and play. I mean, lots of people were saying, the unfortunate few that had completely fallen through the gaps of these two books and only had full armies from this book. I appreciate you were in a tough spot. This is great. You now back in the game and come play games with us. We're super excited.
You can play Dwarves and Fiefdoms again.
Yeah, we're super excited because there's quite a few in here that kind of took our eye. Like you say, there's quite a few that are recreations, and there's 2 or 3 brand new lists as well, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, but they are all evil, which is cool because evil. One of the things we were sort of saying is in the base lists before you get to the Armies of Middle Earth lists. Good has quite a lot of hero-only lists.
Yeah.
Whereas Evil has 2, and both of them are Ringwraiths.
Well, and also, especially in The Hobbit, Good have double. I think in the Lord of the Rings, they have maybe a third more lists. In the Hobbit book, they have double, I'm pretty sure, the number of lists, just general lists that Evil have.
Yeah, and I mean,
this makes sense.
In the context of a movie, it makes sense because
the narrative of
the good are the good guys, so there's a bunch of characters and things that happen with them.
And the books are written from their point of view, the movies are told from their point of view.
I mean, Games Workshop already kind of split the orcs into like 3 distinct flavours with Lord of the Rings. Because you have like Morannons, you have normal, and you have the various Uruk-hai.
And Angmar.
Well, yeah, and Angmar, and
yeah. Same.
But anyway, the point is what they've kind of done is they've added a bit more variety to the evil lists,
Which is great.
And then they filled in some of the existing, well, not the gaps in the good lists. So maybe we should move on to just talking about some of the profiles that are now back in the game.
We're not going to go through every profile because, like I say, it'd be a 2-hour video on its own, and a lot of them are actually very similar to the old versions. But just a quick kind of canter through. There's a load of Hobbit heroes, which is great to see.
I mean, because there is a Shire list in the Armies of the Lord of the Rings, which really was actually quite a surprise to people.
Yes, because it was effectively Bilbo's birthday as a.
It was Bilbo's birthday as a list.
Really
I mean,
strange.
it was great. You could take Gandalf's cart. But they've added back in the Scouring of the Shire Legendary Legion, effectively, which is the Battle of Bywater.
Yep.
Which
warriors, effectively.
Warrior profiles, a whole bunch of extra heroes.
Yeah, it's great.
There's a hilarious amount of stacking buffs.
Why not?
I'm pretty sure you can get Hobbit sheriffs to fight 5, and they have two-handed weapons.
Yep.
So that could be the new meta.
I think so. As a quick aside, the art in the book is really lovely. You sent some photos when you first got the book. I think it's mostly old stuff from the really, or I say really old, maybe that's aging myself, but
some of the
old
noughties source books,
supplements and source books, but they've been kind of harmonised and put into the new book. They're really lovely. So it's a nice book to just flick through. But we have things like the Bjornings are back because they didn't exist at all as a faction.
Yep.
The Woses are back. Quite surprisingly, if you'd asked me when the new edition was announced last year and they kind of announced that certain factions are moving into Legacy, if you'd asked me which factions and model range were moving into Legacy and being written off, I 100% would have put down the Woses.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in the previous edition, you could theoretically have an army that was just Woses.
Yes.
Whereas now you literally can have Gambarigan is Valor, I think.
Yeah.
So I think you can have 16 models that are Woses.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty surprising to see them back.
I guess they're a relatively important part of the book. The chapter of the book allows the riders to get to.
I know. I mean, they play like a really pivotal role in the plot.
Hey ho. We've got our favourite, one of our favourites, Tom and Goldberry back. I mean, I don't think it would have been a bit of an uproar if they'd been taken out. They've been changed relatively significantly, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've basically, in the old rules, Tom and Goldberry had some some interesting rules in terms of like they couldn't be charged. They always want to fight, though no one can make strikes.
Yep.
And then they had like a bunch of magic, and now they've kind of taken it a step further, and it's like instead of casting spells, they're just like, I'm going to spend will, and this is going to happen.
Yes. So yeah, there's no magic because before they both cast magic on really good values, but there was always a chance you could fail it. Now you just sing a song and you spend a will point, and it happens. So one of the things that you can just do with Bombadil is choose a spirit model, and they take a wound. Yeah. So every turn you can just be like Sauron or the Necromancer, you're taking a wound, which is pretty wild, but they're 200 points together.
Yeah, so. I mean, the way I read it is you can still take a fate roll against that.
Yes, they take a wound, which you would, yeah.
And then Goldberry has a spell which she spends a point of will. It's a song, sorry, yes, they sing. She spends a point of will, and your model cannot activate or do anything.
Hey, Smaug.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't activate that to this turn. And if I win priority, you're never activating.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be able to take Goldberry to get that spell, you also have to take Tom, and it's 120 points. Sure. And both of them are only available in a single list.
Yes, which is the more interesting part, I think, because of the way the list building works in the new edition. There's no army lists, it's legendary legionized lists, and the only list you can take them in is Road to Rivendell.
Which is a funny list anyway.
Which is a weird list. I think, again, we said it in our video from 6 months ago in the army lists. We thought that's a strange one to have, but sure. And actually with the extras, because Gildor can now go in as well as a spoiler.
From the Legacies,
and he can take Wood Elf warriors with him. Yeah. So actually it can turn into quite a weird mishmash list, but actually you can take...
It can sort of be like a weird breaking of the Fellowship, where instead of Haldir and Wood Elves, you have Gildor and Wood Elves.
Arwen and Tom Bombadil and Goldberry.
And Tom Bombadil and Goldberry. But yeah, I mean, I think the big problem with Bombadil and Goldberry in the last edition was people were allying them into forces that really shouldn't have them. just because of the power to just charge into a combat and say no, nothing.
Yeah. Or just refreshing song, or
Yeah, I mean there was a lot going on, but so I mean they're interesting. I kind of felt like obviously they're pivotal characters in the book.
Yes.
They're not in the movie at all. But from a gameplay point of view, they were always a bit weird because obviously they cannot be bound by the rules of the game because, you know...
It would be strange if Tom could ever lose a dual role, for example.
Yeah, like Tom is master.
Yeah, he should just automatically win. He does, but they are weird because they just completely circumvent the rules of the game, which...
Yeah, most of their stats are still question marks.
Yeah, which is fun.
Which is great. And they're quite expensive at 200 points.
Yeah.
And then in other good profiles, to just go quite quickly, I suppose... Rohan has the Orwine and Elfhelm back.
Yep.
They're effectively variations on a Rohan captain, slightly better Rohan captains.
Yeah, they've each got a rule.
One's kind of shooty, one's kind of defensive.
Elfhelm's got a throwing weapon, yeah. The Orwine's does pretty much what he did before, which is great.
You can get free heroic combats. Gondor, some of the things, for those who aren't familiar, at the end of the last edition, the Angmar book came out that was possibly delayed for some reason because it came out like 2 months before the new edition came out.
And I think it would have been a year with no releases, and then the Angmar supplement
so maybe there were some sort of shenanigans. But so the Angmar book came out with several new profiles, characters, and 6 lists. Quite a lot of legendary legions.
Yep.
All of those which were ported over in the new release in a PDF are recreated with, I think, no changes from the PDF.
Yeah, quite possibly. Other than an intelligence value has been added.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of that's in here. So Arvedui, Arnor, like some of the Rangers of the North stuff. Glorfindel, he's in here.
Yep. The Burdur and his Hill Trolls.
Burdur and his Hill Trolls.
Men of Carndum.
Earnor.
Yep.
Earnor. The last king of Gondor.
Yep.
He's in it.
Fight me, bro.
And then the big thing for the good is dwarves are back.
The dwarves are back. Fan favourite, well, channel favourite. We don't actually own a Khazad-dûm army. We have
we have 2 other dwarf armies.
Yeah,
that
we have
need
some
to
Iron
paint.
Hills and some Erebor in a box, but something about Khazad-dûm is just very evocative. I think it's the old miniatures, the sort of metal hand sculpted miniatures, just really lovely. But they're back with Durin as their leader, which is great. He's not too much in change in the profiles. We'll get onto the lists in a bit. Khazad Guard are quite tasty this edition, I would say. That's my quick little review.
Fight 5, strength 4, 2-handed weapons.
And Durin can make them burly.
Yeah, I mean, they're well worth... I mean, they were worth it before, but they're even more worth it now.
Yeah.
The Balin variant of Moria has been relegated to the Legacies list.
Yes.
Which is a shame, but I think a lot of people took Durin.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. And then some of the evil ones, when we've got the Mordor siege bows back again. I would have guessed maybe it had been shuttled off with Mortal Coil, but we've got Black Numenorians are back.
We ordered one to put in our Goth Mog, just because 50 points.
Shamans are back, and happily they've all gained an extra spell, so they all had 2 spells. And now they just all have 3, and all of them have Fury brackets, whatever their faction is, plus 2 more, which is really cool. So the Uruk-hai Shaman now has Blade Wrath.
Yeah, which is quite strong, because you could cast that on like a Berserker or an Uruk-hai Captain.
Pop them on a Berserker, could get real feisty for a turn.
Or an Uruk-hai Scout Captain, who already has +1 to wound.
A classic.
The Ruffians.
Ruffians are back, so Sharky and Worm, and some of the worst...
And they're still terrible.
Some of the worst humans, the Ruffians. I think they are perhaps the worst human profile.
Yeah, I mean, they've basically got the same profile as a Moria Goblin, right?
I think so. Fight 2, strength 3, defense 3.
Worse defense.
Worse defense than a
For
Moria
the same
Goblin.
amount of points.
Yeah. But they've got a couple of... They're fighting hobbits that get slightly better. So
and they can take whips.
Another channel favourite, Moria, are pretty heavily expanded, actually. We've got 2 named heroes in Durbaz and Druzag. The dreaded Bat Swarm, which can't be put in as many lists, but it does still do the same thing, halves fight value, which with the ring not doing that as well this edition is pretty powerful.
We figured that the change to the Bat Swarm of halving the fight value would work like the ring, where it's only if the Bat Swarm is the only model in the fight.
Yeah.
But it seems not. Like,
Seems
I
not,
mean,
and they can just carry on doing their thing. They are also a swarm, which is a new unit type this edition, so they can't be knocked prone anymore. They've still got 4 wounds, 2 attacks, so they are actually...
they're going to be pretty hard to kill, and
they were good
quite
before.
annoying to fight, I think.
Yeah, they were good before, and they're still good. We've got the Prowlers back, we've got the Drums back.
Yeah.
More excitingly for other lists, we have the Dragon and the Drake, both of whom have had a buff, I would say.
Has the Drake changed that much?
Maybe not, but I think monsters in general have had a buff.
Yeah, I mean, and the Dragon definitely has had an upgrade, because the Breathe Fire no longer requires spending a will point.
Yep.
And
So every turn, if you want.
Superior Intellect has been added.
Which is really fun. You could, on a 4-up, you get to save your might. In the sneak peek ahead, in the army list, the General Dragon gets 3 upgrades instead of 2.
Yeah.
I think they've dropped in points, the Dragon.
Yes, they were previously
250?
250, I think.
Now they're flat 200, so it's getting
getting
exciting. And then we have a bunch of more things. Gulliver is back in a full book rather than a free PDF.
He's still terrifying, though slow.
He's still 6-inch fly, which, this would be potentially the point when you would correct it, presuming there was a gap in the editing between the last books.
I feel it's intentional.
Maybe. I think a lot of the community will be very sad about it. But
I mean, there are other flying monsters.
Yeah, he's still very scary.
But he is kind of nasty.
Yeah.
And I think it's the getting the wounds back. I mean, because the dragon can fly, and the dragon is terrifying, but it can't heal itself.
And it has survival instinct.
And yeah, it might just run away.
So there's always the chance that you
Yeah, I
just
mean,
take a
maybe
wound.
it's just a balance thing.
Yeah, who knows?
And yeah, and then the classic nice models, the Shadow of Rudar, who was a cool model.
Well, yeah, they're the sort of almost last releases of last edition, weren't they?
And the Orc Kleptomaniac.
I love him. I've got
he's
him.
Great.
We need to paint him up, and I really want to just play a game with him and do very little with him, because he's actually got quite a terrible stat line, and he needs to be one to kill people.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know how you can get that to work. I mean, you just have to be lucky, I think.
It'd be fun.
But it'd be really funny if he makes off with, like, Aragorn's sword.
Great. We got the dreaded Shade, although with its wings clipped, that happened late last edition, didn't it?
Yeah, although, I mean, I think it's a good change for the Shade.
For sure. It's a
really
good change,
neat.
but kind of a dreaded, kind of unusual that it happened at the end of last edition. They very rarely change a profile outright, in my experience, but you could tell clearly that was written with this rulebook in mind.
Yeah, and again, also, I think just the release must have been delayed, because it was really weird to do that.
Something else happened.
The Khandum men, the men of Khandum are in there.
Pretty much the same.
The big thing, and it was one of the big things that was missing from the Armies of Lord of the Rings, is the Easterlings have basically... they have everything back that they had before.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Including, like, all of the special characters, so the Dragon Emperor, the Amdur...
On 2 pages of rules.
Rutabi, Borgir...
Yep.
The Dragon Knights... Black Dragons, Dragon Cult Acolytes, the War Priest, and the tiny little dragon, which now has a model.
Not released yet, though,
Not
right?
released, but it will be coming out, which is exciting.
That is exciting. The Suladan and all his
for Harad.
They're all back. Umbar, they've got a few more profiles back. A really decent, I don't know how many profiles, we haven't counted up, but a really decent chunk of returning profiles. Just everything people would have been waiting
it's,
for.
10 to 60, so it's 50 pages for the good and less pages for evil, 24. There's probably an average of 1.5, so...
Yep, possibly. But
so it's, it's probably about 25 to... No, it's probably about 40 good profiles and, maybe 20 evil profiles. There's quite a lot added back in.
60 plus profiles of heroes and warriors, which is really exciting.
And then to use these profiles, you have to put them in an army list.
And as I'm sure you've watched our previous video from December about how army list construction has changed, there are no longer any army lists where you can pick and choose from everything with that faction keyword. It is now legendary legionized. However, one of the things this book does is give you quite a few, I don't know what the word is, generalist or...
Like more catch-all kind of lists.
Catch-all lists where actually you don't get very many bonuses, or if any, but you have a huge toy box to play with, especially on the evil side. There's a couple on this in this book where you have a good mix, and interestingly, a good mix and good mix across factions. So to pick one off out of the blue, or not out of the blue, there is the Grand Army of the South for Evil, which was a Legendary Legion, but that now is a nice combo of many different, well, several different factions. It has Corsairs, Harad, and Easterlings. There is an army bonus for it, but you can have, for example, the Mumak War Leader, Suladan, Delamir, Amdur, Delgamir, Raza, Haradrims, Easterlings, Assassins, Corsair Captains, and a War Mumak are all open to you, plus all their related heroes, all their related warriors.
Yeah, including kind of specialist things like Serpent Guard or Black Dragon.
Absolutely.
Or Dragon Cult Acolytes.
You only get one special rule, which is +1 courage tests for friendly models, but that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the stuff is kind of low courage, but
yeah, I'll take it.
Like in the previous lists, you're basically paying for variety.
Yeah.
So you sacrifice your special rules on the altar of being able to take basically whatever you want from within that faction.
Yeah, so but it adds in a few generalist lists, which is really nice to see. So, you know, you have the host of the Witch King is the Witch King and everything he could conceivably have sort of drawn together in the north of Middle Earth, in Angmar.
And it's basically like, hey, what if the Witch King was better?
Yeah. There's the Army of the Great Eye, which from memory is sort of that, but Mordor. So it's the Witch King, Ringwraiths, Gothmog, Mouth of Sauron, loads of Mordor minor or sort of lesser heroes, Shelob, a drummer, and then pretty much all the warriors you can think of, Morannons, Mordor, Uruk-hai, Catapults, Siege Bow, Black Numenorians. You don't get an army bonus because the bonus is the fact that you get to...
Sorry, you do get an army bonus. It's a
a
wild army bonus.
Yeah, I was looking
the Great Eye, the Army of the Great Eye has like one of the most exciting army bonuses.
Yes, that is true.
You get to be Sauron's eye and move it around the board.
Place a little counter on the board,
but
ignore me.
It's actually, I think it's the only army bonus where your opponent can interfere with it because it's a roll-off, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Where is it? Yeah, you roll a dice, and on a 2-up, you get to put it where you want. But if you roll a 1, your opponent gets to move the eye because Sauron's going, whoa, looking around.
And it has a particular bonus against ring bearers, which we don't like as, having done a long-running Quest of the Ring Bearer campaign on this channel, we don't like that, but it's a really cool rule.
But then also within the eye, because the eye is like a big, illuminated area, I suppose. Like, I don't know if you need to play with a searchlight or something when you're doing this, but
or a head torch.
But yeah, you get re-rolls within the eye.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And the ring bearer can't hide.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. It's another one where it's a pretty big generalist army list. You've got one that's just the Easterlings, which is most of the Easterlings stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the Easterlings are split into two, isn't it? So there is the Easterlings, which is Amdur, and it's the Easterlings kind of at Minas Tirith. And then there's the host of the Dragon Emperor, which is what they added in War in the North, where it's the Easterlings heading towards the Lonely Mountain, I guess. I can't remember exactly. I think it was the Lonely Mountain.
Yeah, they go towards Erebor. They siege Erebor with some goblins. Yeah,
they added...
they got Moria, another sort of general one, which is sort of everything that wasn't in the depths of Moria, so it's non-Balrog Moria.
Yeah, it's like kind of overland Moria, less deep, dark Moria. Yeah,
and then you got things like the Fiefdoms are back, the Bjornings are not a very large list, but they're back. Army of Erebor, Battle of Fornos, which was in the last edition and previously in the PDF. Battle of Bywater, which is one I'm actually quite excited about, as you said earlier. This has added back in, I think more so than the first two books, your sort of toolbox armies. If you're like, I don't necessarily want to hinge my army around a particular moment or character or rule, I want to just build a nice toy box of stuff and then, play with them with maybe one or two special rules, which I think is really cool. It does also have the opposite, the inverse, and everything in between of a few more lists that are really quite specific, very specific, and a few things in between. So,
yeah, I mean, in terms of specific, there is the Dragons of the North list, which is, hey, you can take 2 units. It's dragons or drakes.
Yeah,
and a bit like the Wraiths on Wings list, you are really railroaded in terms of points costs.
Yes.
Because dragons are 200 points plus 100, or in the case of your general, 150 points of upgrades.
So they're probably going to be 300 points.
So it's probably, you could do a 400 point list.
Yep. Yes. 350.
Yeah, you kind of you might be a bit stuck. Like if someone was like, "Oh, let's play 600," then you're going to have to just have like 3 dragons with 50-point upgrades,
Or one dragon and 2 drakes.
How much is the drake?
150.
The drake's 150. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's quite restrictive, but they get awesome gold stealing rules.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Which is quite fun, and you will give all your dragons fly.
We have one somewhere that we've built. We got last
dragon
a while ago.
I might have tied it away.
They're over there somewhere. But we got one because we have a fairly sizable Moria army for the channel, and it was a fun one to plug in. We got them last edition, so I think definitely we're going to get a couple more dragons and get
I really like the
dragons of the north. But yeah, as you said, there's quite a few that are reissues of Legendary Legions from last edition, and there's only 3 or 4 that are brand new in concept and rules.
For good, there is only one,
Right.
which is the Grief of Aemma.
Yes. Possibly were. No. A joint favourite for me as a Rohan player. I really like the idea that you could just take Aemma, Imrahil and Hurin all on horse and take 3 different types of cavalry and just charge around.
Yeah.
Insanely expensive list. It'd be like a 1,000-point list to do properly.
And but it's also like, I mean, it's great the list is in here, but it's kind of funny because is it Defenders of the Pelennor?
Yes.
It's basically the same thing.
Yes. It's an ever so slightly. Defenders is when they decide they're being sensible and go like, we shall hold the ground. And then Grief of Aemma is when he sees Theoden's dead and thinks Aemma's
loses
dead
his gourd and just goes charging off.
Goes nuts. And in the books, I think he goes off and then
Imrahil goes and helps him.
And he gets in a bit of trouble, and Imrahil has to go and help him.
But yeah, so I mean, in terms of the good army lists, there wasn't anything that was really surprising other than that. For evil, Army of the Great Eye is really quite interesting, and it'll be interesting to see. The Dragons of the North is really cool. Whether that will have any real kind of like tournament legs, I don't know. It's weird. It could be great. Umbar is also an addition.
Yes, that's true. Because
we were talking
faction, but they weren't a list on their own.
Well, yeah, because in the Armies of the Lord of the Rings, the Corsair fleets are in there, and it's the Corsairs and the Ballistas, and that's it.
It's the people you see on the decks of the ship.
Whereas Umbar now is like Dalamir and some of the other characters, but also Harad, because Umbar is a port next to Harad, essentially. Like, so you can also take like the assassins and other stuff, which is kind of cool. And it has a really fun rule where you can choose, you have to take an assassin in your list, and you can choose to kill your general and replace him with a new general.
Super cool. I mean, who knows how often it'll actually come off, but I really like the idea of it.
No, and I also enjoy the idea of basing my entire game plan about trying to kill my own general.
And then you'll try and get them wounded, and then they'll just die outright. And
and you're like, bugger.
Dang, that was that.
But yeah, so I mean, in terms of the lists, there wasn't anything hugely surprising in this book.
No, I think it boils down to 3. So some are straight reissues, so something like Burdur's Horde or Path of the Druidan actually are pretty much straight reissues from last edition.
Yeah, again, super surprising that it's here, but like, I mean,
lovely. It's lovely.
It's
some are reissues but with a change. So the Fords of Eisen have changed a little bit in the way they work.
It's got a different name, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, it was Riders of Theodred. Moria is slightly different in what you can take because it's slightly more restrictive. You can't have the Balrog, but it lets you put a lot more in, and then it has some interesting bits and bobs. And then a few are brand new, like we've just said, the Army of the Great Eye or some things like that. So we have a nice raft of lists. We probably should have counted them up. I would guess at a thing 20 or so lists, 20 plus, something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's quite a lot of lists because I mean just on top of. Because the Hobbit ones, there's like
far less. Especially for evil.
But I mean, the Hobbit list is still probably almost 20.
Only for good.
But good and evil combined.
Yeah.
And then the Lord of the Rings, obviously, there's a ton here.
Pretty giant.
So there are now an awful lot of lists to choose from.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, like all of the Rohan lists are broadly similar.
Very broad strokes. It breaks down to mounted people doing mounted things or people fighting on foot.
Yeah, like most of the Gondor lists are like, hey, we're a bunch of tin cans.
Yeah.
with some stuff.
And a hero lets us do a funny thing.
But there are a lot of lists in the game now. I mean,
Yeah.
and
And
there's
there'll only be more because we can only assume there's going to be supplements coming, and each supplement before previously added legendary legions usually.
yeah.
So even if each supplement only adds 4 to 6 lists after a year or two of supplements, we're going to end up nearing 100 different lists probably.
Yeah, and I mean it's a
is
very
really cool.
it's a sort of different approach to other Games Workshop games because I'm assuming that there'll be like a common pool of profiles.
Well, that's
and
what
then-
these 3 books are.
And then you'll take them in different lists.
Yeah.
Which I suppose kind of just goes on to the last thing that it added is just the profiles. So in the back of this book,
yeah, we've got the profiles, the lists, and then
there
we
is
have,
the Legions of Middle Earth.
which is very exciting. So that's the part that I think, being kind, I think some people didn't quite read in the article that was, in fairness, published way back in the depths of November or something,
Yeah.
where there was one article from Warhammer Community that said Armies of Middle Earth profiles will be made available in the Armies of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit later on with the Legions of Middle Earth. So we've always known it's coming. It's just been, I suppose, fair enough, slightly frustrating in that we haven't known how long it's going to be. So you've been sitting, if we knew it was going to be 2 months, everyone would have sat still. But if we knew it was going to be 2 years, people missing key chunks of their army might quite rightly go and start a new army or take a hiatus or whatever. In the end, 6 months isn't the end of the world.
No.
But it would have been nice if it was that quicker. But bottom line is it gives you a big old list of the profiles in this book, and then it tells you which profiles can be plugged into the lists in those 2 books. So the Armies of Lord of the Rings and the Armies of the Hobbit, which is great. So the Free Peoples, so the Shire has had a whole bunch of profiles thrown back in the Shire list, in addition to the Battle of Bywater.
Yeah, so at Bilbo's party, you can now have
Farmer Cotton.
Fatty Bolger.
Yeah,
and
the Sackville Bagginses.
I don't think he invited them, but they're there.
Yeah, they elbowed their way in. So they're all, for example, only available in the Shire list. You can't take Sackville Bagginses in a Rivendell list or even a Rangers list.
No, but you can take Lotho in the Ruffians.
Yes. Whereas right next to them, Diorwine and Elfhelm, the 2 profiles added for Rohan, can be taken in 4 lists. So they can be taken in the ones in this book, but in addition they can be
more
taken.
than 4, I suppose.
Well, yeah, more than 4. The ones in this book, and then also the Kingdom of Rohan, Riders of Theoden, Defenders of the Pelennor. I miscounted 3, plus the ones in this list. So they can be taken and sort of plugged into those lists. So they've expanded those lists. So that's what's really great is this book has given us some lists, it's given us some profiles, and it's expanded the lists in those 2 books as well.
Yeah, and I think uniquely, the other thing that has been added is there's a number of Lothlorien profiles. There is no list for Lothlorien in this book.
Yep.
But all of the Lothlorien profiles that are missing from Lothlorien in Armies of Lord of the Rings are here. So you can have Rumil and Orifin, who are from the last book.
Yeah.
Wood Elf Sentinels are back. Guards of the Galadrim Court are back. And Galadrim Knights are back.
Yeah.
Spoiler, you still don't have any serious hero-killing hero.
Yeah, sure.
But Guard of the Galadrim Court is still fight 6.
You have some of the best shooting and magic in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you don't need a
It's
giant
definitely
combat.
no. It's just interesting the way that they've distanced Lothlorien from Rivendell.
Yeah.
Because I think in the past Rivendell was one thing and Lothlorien was kind of the same, but not quite.
Slightly different magic, yeah.
But and then they've also made it so Glorfindel can be taken in a Rivendell army.
Yep.
The Sons of Elrond can also go in Rivendell.
Yeah.
It's the same. Great. And then for evil, I mean, it's less complicated.
Yeah.
They haven't added as many evil profiles as they've added good profiles, I don't think.
No, but some of them can go in a lot more lists. So a Mordor Orc Shaman can go in Barad-dûr, Army of Gothmog, Legions of Mordor, Minas Morgul, Cirith Ungol, and the Black Gate. So that is 6 armies the Mordor Orc Shaman can be plugged into, not including any that are in this list, this book. Which I'm pretty sure he can go in.
At least 2, I think.
At least 2 or 3. For example, like the Depths of Moria can have a Prowler back. The Legions of Mordor can have Haradrim. Isengard, the Army of the White Hand, which seems to be a pretty popular one, can
Get a
have
troll.
trolls or Isengard.
Oh, and on
Uruk-hai
the
shamans.
Assault upon Helm's Deep for the troll.
Yeah, you can tell this is a brand new book for us, so we're still learning things.
Yeah. Is there a difference between a Mordor Orc Shaman and an Angmar Orc Shaman? Because there used to be, in terms of spells.
Yes, they've got different spells.
Do they have different spells?
Yeah.
There we go. Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, so that it feels like basically the game, in my mind, is complete now. Because everything that they sell and everything that was missing now has been brought back into the game. And whilst it's worth acknowledging that it's still not quite as flexible as the old Army List Alliance Matrix,
Yes.
it's gone. We're going to have to live with it. But more importantly, I think with the amount of lists between these three books, I can't think of many lists that existed, or lists and Alliance Matrix kind of key matchups that existed that don't have an army list of some sort. Because, I mean, as an example, the end of last edition, I've got a Rohan army, as you might be able to tell. And I was thinking, it would be kind of cool to do a mix Rohan Gondor army to represent the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. But I think they were a Yellow Alliance before, maybe green.
No, they were green.
Okay, they were green. But the two, you could plug them into each other, but they didn't get great bonuses off each other. It didn't.
I mean, it's not. You get the basic synergy if you kind of have your anvil and your hammer, right?
Yeah, and you both got to keep their army list, but because you were spending points getting heroes from both, blah blah blah. It was okay, but I never got around to actually collecting it. Whereas now I can, our friend Thomas, a friend of the channel, has fiefdoms. I could borrow his fiefdoms. We have some Gondor Knights painted up for the channel, and I have Rohan painted up for the channel. I could take a Grief of Aemir list and just go,
To town.
Go to town with a pretty
Cavalry
nasty
charge.
cavalry all-star list, and it gives me bonuses for taking that list, which is really great. So for me, this has been a really nice sort of bookmark to go like, right, we are now properly in this edition. Which, like it feels almost like the edition. It was a little warm up. We were doing our like warm up stretches, and now we're like, right, we're here. We're good to go, and let's go have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of the stuff they've added is kind of the thing with the Alliance Matrix was it allowed you to do some like more fluffy kind of choices.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the things they've added now are kind of fluffy, but they're within the realms of what's kind of already in the thing. So like you can take Imrahil and you can put him in Men of the West.
Yeah, sure.
It's probably not a super competitive list because you're already paying 200 and whatever for LSR.
Yeah.
But you do you. You can do Men of the West, and it could be Imrahil, LSR, and Aemir, and I think that's probably 500. That's more than 500 points.
And Gandalf the White, if you wanted.
And Gandalf the White, and like inexplicably, you don't get a reduction in Gandalf the White's cost, despite the fact that he doesn't have the staff. But
yeah, sad.
But I also just spotted you can put Elladan and Elra here in Men of the West.
I think in the books they go to the Black Gate with Aragorn.
So I mean, you could easily do 1,000 points in Men of the West and just have heroes.
Just do a hero hammer list. I mean, it'd be fun. That'd be awesome. I mean, yeah, not super optimized because none of them get their horses.
No one's got a horse.
Which is where they shine, or especially Imrahil and that sort of thing. But why not? That would be really cool.
I think it's cool, and so there is that sort of fluffiness. As we say, Tom Bombadil and Goldberry can only go in one list, but it is the most fluffy list that they could possibly go in.
The only one that really makes sense. With the army building how it is, I can't think of another list that it would make sense for them to appear in.
No, and also the thing is the Road to Rivendell, the only restriction is you have to take Frodo. So hypothetically, you could have Tom Bombadil and the 4 hobbits.
Yeah.
And that would be 300 points, I think, roughly, close to 300 points.
I know he's only 120, and then...
Yeah, Frodo's something... Oh, maybe it might even only be...
Frodo and Sam are about 100 between them, and then Merry and Pippin had 20 for the two of them.
So, let's play a 250-point game.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would be scared of Sam, to be honest. He's
I mean, he's kind of beastie. But yeah, I mean, I like what they've done.
Yeah.
Obviously... There are still some things that are missing. Some of this is in the Legacies.
Yeah.
There's a few inexplicable things, like Grimbold is mentioned by name in the books and the movie,
Yep.
and he's still in the Legacies.
Yep. He's quite a major character. Well, not major, but he's a repeated. He appears in more than one scene in the books.
I mean, in the movie, he is on a horse,
Yep.
and he just looks like a royal guard.
But he's never had a horse.
But he doesn't have a horse.
GW
the miniature.
hates Grimbold, hashtag.
Yeah, they hate him.
For some reason.
Erkenbrand, who was like Hen's Teeth in the last edition.
Yep.
He's just gone. He's legacied. Presumably never to come back.
Yep.
I wonder whether they lost the mold or something. Like, I mean,
Maybe, yeah.
It seems weird, but sure.
Who knows? But yeah, it's yeah. We are going to go into. We have a separate video for the Legacies because it's quite a major document, and its impact on the game is pretty significant, I would say. Unless you are playing at a Games Workshop Warhammer World event. I don't think they run events anywhere else.
Well, in the stores in the US and things.
Oh, that's true. I suppose they run events out abroad, but in the UK anyway, they run events only at Warhammer World. The only thing that it stops is they won't be FAQ'd, and you can't use them at a Warhammer World event, which is pretty standard from other systems. But especially in Middle Earth, the community events outnumber the Games Workshop events by several orders of magnitude, I'd say.
And quite a lot of the big name ones have already said that they said even before they saw the Legacies that they would support the Legacies in their event.
If you are looking for any FAQs on how things interact with Legacy profiles, I think the GBHL, the Great British Hobbit League, page or group have already said they will provide a community FAQ for the Legacies, so that's really good to see. So yeah, I think we've talked about this book long enough, long awaited, really important, and feels like the game has finally not come home, but finally grown up. We've finally got there.
Yeah, I mean, we're back where we were.
But with a new game.
With a new edition, with some interesting and broadly welcome changes. I mean, the loss of the Alliance Matrix is still kind of, yes, it's a bit of a wrench, but then when people do really nasty alliances...
Yeah, that make no sense.
You know, like the Goblin King and, I don't know, Smaug. Like, if you could do that.
I guess at least they existed at the same time, like Gilgalad and Aragorn.
Yeah, I mean, there were some broken things you could do before, and especially... The old Alliance Matrix, the penalties for doing something out of
for example, as the Goblin King, the Goblin Town army bonus was that it's just you could take more goblins in each warband, but it was never a bad thing to just take more Goblin Town captains.
And he was legend anyway.
And he was legend, so he could have 18 as standard. So losing that bonus really isn't a big deal. So it was. I don't know if people were allying Goblin Town into a list because I don't know.
I mean, clearly they were because they're incredible.
We do love Goblin Town on the channel.
But yeah, I mean, or just, you know, there were all sorts of kind of slightly wacky combinations of things that kind of go against the spirit of the game that they tried to create, which is, yes, it is a very competitive game, but it's also something that wears its kind of narrative element really, you know, prominently on their sleeve.
I think
sort
so.
of thing.
I think it's almost a narrative. It's a narrative game first with a very well. It's not even a competitive core. It's a very well balanced core.
It's a very tight rule set.
Lends itself very well to a competitive game. But that's the beauty of it. As we've seen on this channel, I hope you've seen that you can play either way and both work brilliantly. But yeah, I think we've waffled on for that long enough. Broad strokes, great book. The design of it is actually really nice. Like I said earlier, the art in it is lovely.
Yeah.
Great to see all the returning profiles, and some of the lists are a surprise extra list. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just exciting to see all of this stuff back in. It's going to really shake up kind of list building.
But from our point of view, it's going to mean we're buying some more dragons pretty imminently.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the old edition, which had a bunch of factions and some legendary legions, this is actually way more varied. It's just maybe individually within some of the lists you can't build exactly what you want.
Yes, maybe. And if you built a list to a specific taste or specific theme or construction last edition, it might not be valid this edition, which is a shame, but I think that probably happens every edition of any game. And I would say, actually, this edition has made me want to play a more varied collection of armies than last edition. I'm really keen to just buy some Wozers and try out the Pass of the Druidan.
So when you say more varied, you mean other versions of Rohan?
No, the Battle of Bywater. Well, actually, yes, the Battle of Bywater and in the Legacies again.
But how do the Rohan feature in the...
They don't. They don't. I'm going off piece, but they're still green.
Merry is there. I mean,
That's
he's
true.
from Rohan.
That's true. Yeah, I'm going... You can't go too far from Rohan. But yeah, it's made me want to branch out a bit, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to us. Hopefully that has been a really useful waffle.
If we said anything useful,
If we
please
said
tell us
anything,
in the comments.
Yeah, please let us know.
Like-
Thank you to everyone for watching along, all our regular viewers. We've been loving the comments you guys are leaving on our regular videos, which has been lovely to see. We have a pretty bustling Discord nowadays with a really good little hobby channel.
Painting
and hobby channel. People kind of sharing recipes and army construction
Get some
tips.
motivation.
Get some motivation. We certainly need it. Some friends of ours certainly need it. We won't name names. Yeah, it's been really lovely. We've got all our regular social media channels. You can find us at the usual places. And Jules, take us out. What is the one sentence summary of the Armies of Middle Earth? Put you on the spot.
More armies, more of the time.
And with that, we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.